California Governor Gavin Newsom's latest media blitz is fueling speculation that the 2024 Democratic presidential field could be getting more crowded. Newsom's recent appearances on NBC's Today Show, a sit-down with Fox News' Sean Hannity, a Politico interview, and his escalated attacks on Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis add suspicion that he could jump into the race.
Meanwhile, a new DailyMail.com JL Partners survey actually shows DeSantis faring better against President Joe Biden than rival Donald Trump against Joe Biden. Now, according to the poll, Biden would actually beat both of them if the election were held tomorrow, but DeSantis would come closer. A Biden-DeSantis matchup reveals Biden would take 44% of the vote to 43%. When up against Trump, Biden would take 46 to 44. That finding being more in line, and I think we've cited some polls that found the opposite previously, that Trump actually doing better. That poll is more in line with, I think, what people would just normally expect, that, you know, Biden beat Trump once. Trump isn't getting any more popular among the general electorate. Maybe he can, the lust that Republican primary voters feel for him in their hearts maybe fluctuates, but could he win more people than last time in a general election? I see why people would think no. Maybe DeSantis, who is not a household name yet, has not had nearly as much media attention. It's conceivable that he could increase his support or people liking him as they learn more about him. It's also possible he could lose as they learn more about him. But it's a question mark, whereas Trump is not. I don't think Trump is a question mark for anyone left on earth. That would be the theory.
So obviously that could be one way it goes, but it's also worth noting that while Trump hasn't gotten any more popular with the public, Joe Biden has gotten less popular with the public than he was in 2020. Now he has to actually stand on his record instead of just talking about the things that Trump got wrong. They're both former presidents with records of conduct. Biden can no longer claim to be able to kind of save the world from COVID in the way that he averred. All of the statements about how, if X number of millions of people died under under Trump, that was completely unconscionable and that would never happen on my watch. Cut to 2 years later, more people have died under Biden than they have, under Donald Trump. And so, that is part of what's going on here. Could be going on here. Also, the unfavorables of these candidates are dramatically high. We covered, I think, last week how RFK Jr. has better favorability ratios than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is underwater with favorability. Obviously, Donald Trump is no walk in the park as well. But it's difficult to assess what the outcome is going to be when you have two kind of historically unfavorable candidates. We saw this play out in 2016, where, again, everyone had these polls that showed that Hillary Clinton was going to win the day, and we know what happened there.
Well, what do you think Gavin Newsom is doing here? I don't think it would surprise me if he's actually going to run against Joe Biden, not because he's not ambitious. I think he thirsts for it, for the presidency. The Democratic establishment, though, is so powerful and so all behind Biden. There will be no challenge to Biden if they can help it. So to go up against them is, I think, shooting himself in the foot for a later aspiration. If, this is him running against Kamala Harris in 2028, fine, sure, absolutely. I say he'll make a go of it. It would really, so maybe he's just laying the groundwork for that. I don't think he's going to get in the race. I mean, as you point out, Biden is very unpopular. There is certainly appetite in the party for someone else. Gavin Newsom, I don't care for him at all, but he could maybe make a good go of it. I just don't think he's going to want to alienate. I think he's going to be afraid to alienate the DNC. I
think to the extent that he's planning a run, it will be a sanctioned run. I think that it could be the case that this is a trial balloon of sorts. The Democratic Party is looking at the odds that say a majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run. Certainly, a majority of Americans don't want Biden to run again. There have been recent gaffes, God Save the Queen, the fall. People are concerned. I was recently talking to a number of kind of mainstream Democrats, and there was no one in the group who was willing to defend Biden, even in that cohort. So I think that this could be a case of seeing, throwing Newsom out there, getting his feet wet, putting him in front of a Fox News audience, getting him in different kinds of media circumstances to see what his poll numbers are like, what the public response is like to him, to see if the Democrats feel confident enough demoting Joe Biden and offering an alternative. I think the fact of RFK Jr. being in this race is also a factor here, where they're seeing that Joe Biden is going to have a little bit of a difficult time continuing to justify the complete and total absence of a debate for another entire year, even though R.F. Kennedy is having great favorability numbers and 20% of the poll results. What's going to happen when these insurgent candidates start doing their own debates, start finding platforms increasingly on Fox News and on Twitter and places that the mainstream media can't control? If his poll numbers go up, what are they going to say if it's 30, 40, 50% and Joe Biden is still reluctant to debate? What's it going to look like if and when there are Republican debates and there's still silence on the Democratic side of the aisle?
Again, they're bought into this idea that if we're not platforming a debate is not happening. But that's not true anymore, if it was ever true. It's certainly not true now. There's too many alternative places you can go and get attention, and it just makes you look weak, that you can't defend your side, that you want to shut people down by silencing them, not by explaining why they're wrong. It's such a self-defeating tactic, and it is the one that mainstream forces prefer time and time again these days.
Well, speaking of mainstream forces, there was a really interesting back and forth on one of those mainstream liberal channels discussing the entrance of Dr. Cornell West into the race. This is how they framed his impact on the election cycle.
We have progressive activist Robert Cornell West, who first announced running for president in the People's Party, but now he is switching to the Green Party. He's addressing accusations of potentially being a spoiler in the election. Take a listen.
You don't look to the weakest candidates as a full explanation as to why you lose. Sister Hillary Clinton lost because she was not a good candidate. The idea of putting all the responsibility on the candidates who get the fewest votes compared to the other big two is just a way of rationalizing a two-party system that has become more and more outdated and antiquated.
Do you agree with that? I mean, in today's national politics, how big an impact does a third-party candidate have to siphon votes from Democrats and Republicans? And is he going to be on the ballot in 50 states?
Well, you just touched on it and Elise touched on it. The key is ballot access, right? If the Green Party, if Cornell West is the nominee for the Green Party, and the Green Party is on the ballot in an Arizona or a Wisconsin or a Pennsylvania, then the impact could be significant. I mean, I think what Cornell West is saying there, it doesn't appear to be all that versed in history, right? We don't have to go back far. The 2000 election, George Bush is declared the winner of Florida by 537 votes.
Right.
And yet 97,000 people voted for Ralph Nader. So it's a concern.
Historian Dr. Cornell West, not apparently well-versed enough in history. It's interesting. It almost felt like the gentleman on the left was giving a call to the dogs. You got to keep them off the ballot. And in fact, as a libertarian, you well know that has been a strategy of the two corporate parties to concretize their power since time immemorial. They could be doing a different kind of call, say for ranked choice voting, which would also get rid of the spoiler problem, but that would also diminish the fundamental power of these two mainstream corporate parties.
Right, or you can just win their voters by talking about their issues and pledging to do something. Yeah, a Green Party always being accused of taking votes from Democrats. The Libertarian Party often gets accused of taking votes from Republican Party, but many libertarians do not prefer the Republican Party to the Democratic Party, think they're both bad. There are probably even some people in self-described libertarians who would have voted for Biden instead of Trump. It's not clear to me at all that they take necessarily more from Republicans. A lot of them just would not vote for either of these people because neither party is representing their interests. You want to be strategic about it, fine, but. And also that history lesson, I'm sorry, George Bush won Florida because they printed a ballot where people voted for Pat Buchanan by mistake because the ballot was really funky looking.
The Supreme Court.
It's not, it wasn't the wrath of the Nader voter. Yeah. It was literally a screwed up ballot where if you had this ballot, you would also vote for Pat Buchanan, Briahna, because it was really badly made.
And don't forget, Ralph Nader, this is not an apocryphal story. I've talked to them about this on my podcast several times. He went to Al Gore's campaign and said, here is a list of my policy priorities. Here's 2025, whatever. Pick a couple and I'll drop out of the race. Al Gore decided, no, I don't have to earn the people's votes. I don't have to adopt some of these popular policy platforms. I'm going to go in on my own and suffer the consequences. America as a whole suffer the consequences. So Another example of a certain kind of narrative control that's coming out of the mainstream media, and we will continue to bring you news from these insurgent campaigns as they continue to develop more rising after this.